A wedding is usually a grand event. However, even when people plan it down to the last detail, something inevitably doesn't go the way they want it to. It's the embarrassments and mix-ups that make a wedding truly unforgettable. Here are 13 of the most amusing things that happen to people on their big day. Honestly, we laugh like drains at story number 8. Let's see which one will make you smile.
During our wedding ceremony, the moment came when our rings were brought to us. First, my husband put the ring on my finger. Then, with an elegant gesture, I took his ring from the box and began pushing it onto his finger. It wouldn't fit. It got to the knuckle but wouldn't go any further. It was too small. I started panicking. Everyone was watching me trying to force a tiny ring onto his finger with mounting desperation. I tried putting it on his little finger, but it didn't work. Then, miraculously, with one final rough push, I squeezed it onto his third finger. The cameraman managed to capture the whole struggle in detail for our wedding movie.
I always made fun of my friend because she got married to the same person 3 times. 3 times, guys! Yet in a week's time, I'm getting married for the 2nd time. To my ex-wife.
My best friend is getting married soon. While I was riding the bus recently, I began rehearsing the speech I intended to give at the wedding. I ended up getting more than a little carried away. From a bystander's perspective, the scene would have looked something like this. A young woman looking out of a dim window. Not a sound coming from her, but she's clearly very emotional. Her lips are trembling, and there are tears in her eyes. At the same time, she's got a goofy smile on her face. I emerged from my stupor only when a man sitting opposite me asked if I was feeling okay. I looked around, and everyone on the bus was eyeing me wearily for some reason. I only really understood why later on. It turns out the final stop on that bus route is a mental hospital.
There were a lot of children at our wedding, smartly dressed boys and girls. We let 2 of them carry the long veil of my wedding dress. When my groom and I entered the hall for the registration ceremony, I suddenly felt that I couldn't go forward. There was some kind of huge weight bearing down on me. It seems the 2 boys we'd assigned the special task to had grabbed hold of my veil, along with a 3rd boy, and decided to pull me in the opposite direction. There were a few more children waiting in line to also have a go once they'd finished their ride. I tried to push forward, but the little angel's combined strength meant I ended up slipping and falling flat on my back.
At my sister's wedding, when the registrar said, "Do you, Jack, agree to?" the groom interrupted her and said, "I agree to anything because I love Anna." The problem was, my sister is called Karen. Whoops.
My friend was getting married. She was the happiest girl in the world, running here and there for 2 months, making all the arrangements. She invited practically everyone she knew to the wedding. Friends, relatives, acquaintances, even neighbors. She spent a ton of money and found herself a great big puffy wedding dress. Everything was worked out down to the last detail, and of course she had a wonderful photographer lined up. The big day finally arrived. Somehow, she'd managed to get stung by a wasp on her upper lip. The result? A wedding featuring a bride with a huge puffy face, a skin rash from her allergic reaction, and eyes red with tears. Anyway, they've been happily married for nearly 10 years.
Once, my mom bought me an incredibly beautiful ring, clip-on earrings, and a necklace. They were all made of plastic, though. I was 5 years old. When I went to kindergarten, everyone was in awe of me. One of the boys proposed to me, and we were married after lunch. Our marriage didn't last very long. A week later, my friend turned up at kindergarten with metal jewelry her mom had bought her. My love-crazed husband swiftly proposed to her as well. I got my revenge by throwing my plastic jewelry at them during their wedding. That's when I first learned the truth about men.
We were in a rush to get to our friend's wedding. We ran into the hall just at the moment that they were declared husband and wife. The only problem was that it wasn't the couple we were looking for. But there was now nowhere for us to hide. To blend in, we sat down, in the first row, to bear witness to the rest of these complete strangers' wedding ceremony. The bride and groom both cast questioning glances at us. It turned out that our friends were next in line to be married in the same hall. Obviously, we stayed for their ceremony as well. Noticing that we were still in the same seats, the registrar asked us, "So, have you got a season ticket or something?"
We wanted to release some doves at our wedding. However, when the moment came, instead of gracefully soaring into the sky, the birds decided to stay huddled together in their cage. The cage was tipped over, the door turned downward and shaken. The poor doves fell out one by one but refused to fly off, and instead sat on the ground sulking. My husband was in such a panic that he started shouting at them. They just ran off to a different spot as if they were chickens. One of them then climbed onto my husband's arm and relieved itself before he had time to get it off. Our guests were by now hooting with laughter. They say it's bad luck if the birds refuse to fly away, but that's turned out to be nonsense. We're still happily married 12 years later.
On the eve of our wedding, my husband-to-be started interrogating me about how many guys I'd been with before him. I ended up having to admit to him that he was my 10th. I saw the serious look on his face and thought, well, there goes the wedding. Then he said, almost without thinking, "I'm a real milestone for you."